Hey guys, it's Matt here, and in this video, I've got something quite a bit different that I'll be doing on the channel this time. That is, I'll be installing OS X on an Apple TV. Now, for those of you who are unaware, Apple TVs for the longest time have used ARM processors. That's how they've been since the Apple TV second generation. This Apple TV, the first one, more specifically, uses an Intel processor and is basically a Mac, just running a modified version of macOS 10.4 Tiger. Now, with these things in mind, you're probably like, well, if this is a Mac, can you install just desktop macOS on one of these? Turns out, you can. These use a Pentium M of some sort, I think it's 1 gigahertz, and 256 megabytes of RAM. Doesn't sound like a lot, and it really isn't, but it's enough to run macOS. So the I/O on the back is not that great. You've got a single USB port, you've got Ethernet, which I think is 10100. You've got HDMI and 5 audio and video jacks. So you have the 2 left and right audio channels, then you have the 3 video channels. And then we've got an optical audio port, which I think actually does work as well, so we'll have to see. But yeah, this is basically just a Mac Mini without a fan, so it'll get quite warm. Now, the version of OS X that we'll be sticking with today is macOS X Leopard. Now, you have 3 options when it comes to installing macOS on this thing. You can install Tiger, which is by far the best option. However, I can't figure out how to do it. You have to modify it in some certain way. It's a pain in the butt. I'm not doing it in this video. And Leopard's more useful anyways. Then you have, like I said, Leopard, which I'll be installing on this Mac. Speed and software usability. There's a decent bit of software for Leopard that I can install on here. So that's what I'll try doing. And then you've got Snow Leopard. Now, since this is an Intel machine and it's 32-bit, Snow Leopard is the theoretical highest OS you can install on one of these. I have not seen anyone do it. It's theoretically possible, and actually I think I've heard of some people who have done it, but I've never seen pictures. So Snow Leopard's not what we're going to be installing today. Especially with a Pentium M and 256 megs of RAM, I don't think we're going to get very far. So I'm just going to stick with a middle ground that I know works, and that is Leopard. And Leopard, thankfully, has an image that's already pre-made. Yeah, that makes my life way easier. Now, most of the time people are like, oh, you got to open these things up, you got to pull back the rubber and take the IDE drive out. Yes, this uses IDE. However, we're not going to be doing that today. I'll be installing the OS to an external drive and then copying it to the internal drive. My thought here is I don't know if this is going to work. I've never seen anybody install to an external drive and then clone it to an internal drive. I've just never seen that work. I do have Linux installed on here right now, which I will be wiping because Linux is nice, but it is useless nowadays. The version of Linux that I have on here is freaking old. I am currently 19 years old, for people who don't know, and I got Linux installed on this thing when I was 15. I've had this TV box for a long, long time. So the version of Linux that's on here is called OSMC, is quite outdated, and I'm not going to be updating it because, well, to be fair, Linux is cool, and it would actually be more usable than macOS would be because Leopard's pretty old nowadays. No software is really being made for it anymore, and Linux is obviously they're still making new software. However, the new software that you'd want to run on this thing, the RAM is so limited, there's absolutely nothing that would actually really work on here. I tried to install Google Chrome on this thing as a joke. This would have been like version, 60 or something, because this was like way back. That completely locked up this thing. Like, it totally locked up. It tried to open it, and it was gone. So, and yes, while it does have a page file, the hard drive in here is going to be absolutely slammed, and it would just destroy performance. So we're not doing that. So yeah, let's get on to the first step of the process. Now for that, I'm going to need my MacBook. Yes, I'm only just recording with my camera. I could screen record, but no, that's a pain in the butt. And I'm not going to be using this thing for much anyways. You can see here, I've got the image of the Apple TV DMG. It's actually pretty straightforward from what I'm hearing. All you have to do is use disk utility or another utility to clone the image to a hard drive. Now, I've got a hard drive bay right here, and I've got a hard drive that I'll be using. This is only temporary. It's obviously not going to be this is not going to be the permanent solution. So I've got an 80 gigabyte Toshiba hard drive that I'll be using from an old Mac that I have that I've since upgraded to an SSD. I don't use these drives anymore. I've had a couple of them laying around. I just use them for projects like these, and they both still work. And I've got the hard drive dock plugged in. I'll plug in the hard drive now, which you can't see. Untitled. Okay, that's a good start. Now, I'm gonna have to see, is this formatted? It is not, it has something on it. So I assume this is another copy of OS X. I don't think it matters what I name it, so we're just gonna leave it as is, but this does need to be, I think, GUID partition map. So let's change that. And this also needs to be macOS extended journaled, and yeah, it can be called untitled. And there we go, it's done. And at this point, I think all we have to do now is just drag the image to, just kidding. You used to be able to do that. I guess they took that out, but we have to scan an image for restore. So let's pop it into here and have it scan it. Oh, yeah, you can authentic. Okay. What do you mean you can't? It's right there. Okay, let's just try something else. Let's click on the disk partition and let's hit restore. And then we'll use restore from, let's do the mounted drive. Okay, plan B. We're gonna try Super Duper and see if this works. I have had bad luck with disk utility. I rarely ever have that work. I have no luck with this utility most of the time too, but we're gonna see what happens. Yeah, I was worried about this. I've had a lot of issues with Super Duper. This is, I guess, one of them. Everything is grayed out. I can't do anything. I have checked permissions. Everything is good there. I have no clue why this is happening. Yeah, like everything's just grayed out. Welcome to the desk. And let's pull down a fan favorite. The good old white MacBook. This should hopefully do the job. So, we're at this Mac. Unfortunately, AirDrop is not a supported thing on this computer. And yes, while it does show up here, that's because I force enabled it. It does kind of work, but I don't have an old enough Mac that will actually AirDrop to AirDrop 1. So, I've got this MacBook here. This is my 06. And yes, it's got OS X Yosemite on it. I'm gonna probably need to get this thing plugged into a charger. I don't think the battery is gonna last, but we'll see. I need to get this copied over to the hard drive. I'm gonna see if this version of Disk Utility can do it. This is actually one of the reasons why I keep these older Macs around, because they can actually do this kind of stuff. And yep, it showed up here. So let's open up Disk Utility here. And there we go. It actually, there's an EFI partition on here, that's weird. So let's go ahead and erase. Give this a partition, and yeah, let's do it. The disk is unformatted, yeah. Well, that was entirely pointless because it just made an EFI partition. I'm gonna guess that macOS Extended Journal just makes EFI partitions. And we're going to, we need to restore it, so don't fall over. There we go. Source is untitled, but that's wrong. So we're gonna need to drag in this image. And the destination, that'll be this partition right there. Are you sure you want to erase untitled? Yeah, there's nothing on there. Good, it seems to be doing it. I'm actually surprised by that. I didn't expect that to work. So I'll be back when this finishes. Looks like it finished. I don't know why it's asking me to use it for that, but let me check and see. Looks like it's got the stuff on it. This is a pre-made image too, so that's it for this Mac. Hard drive has the operating system on it. Hopefully all the modifications needed. It looked like that was the case from the Macintosh Garden page. I will leave a link for that in the video description, by the way. And from the looks of it, I think you just plug this in. It uses, the USB drive is priority over the internal drive. I probably shouldn't plug in just the hard drive because there's only one USB port, and don't think this has Bluetooth, so it's not like I could hook up any Bluetooth peripherals. So I couldn't even shut this thing down. Yeah, what I'm gonna need to do is find a USB hub of some sort. I think I have one laying around somewhere that I used to use. I don't know where it went. I need to get a keyboard for this thing anyways, so why don't I just use my main Apple keyboard? The reason why I say this is because this will work with the USB hub on this keyboard. Now you're probably like, oh, it's not gonna provide enough power. It doesn't need to. This needs to provide no power whatsoever because the power is coming from the wall. And yes, I have tried it. This drive bay, when plugged into one of the side ports here, does work. You're probably saying, oh, well, the Apple TV uses HDMI. I've thought of this. I have an HDMI to DVI adapter. I'll just plug that in to the back of the monitor, which has another DVI cord plugged into it. Honestly, I can't, I would have to bend this down. I can't see anything. Oh. Plug in the adapter. I will think of a more permanent solution for this later. I have a VGA to HDMI cable that is not in use currently, and I cannot find it. So I will get that later. Oh, it turned off the monitor because it pushed the button. That's funny. Yeah, no DVI-D cable, that is okay. Get the HDMI cable, plug this end into the Apple TV here, which I can't see. Let me pull up the speaker that fell down. Move the monitor so this fits again. Not like there's gonna be any sound right now because I don't have anything plugged in at the moment. Let's get this going. Oh, it totally ignored it. Oh, what the heck? Oh, what the heck? It totally ignored the hard drive. I lost some footage recording, so that was cool, I guess. But I went and tried plugging in the hard drive without the keyboard, thinking maybe the hub was being a problem, but no, it didn't make a difference. I'm reading up online that I actually did miss a step. That step is that you need to change the type of the disk, or else the Apple TV won't boot from it. If you're going external, it has to see it as a recovery drive. I'll have to take a note of the internal drive because I don't want it booting from a recovery drive as its main boot like as the internal drive, it's probably not even going to accept that. So that would probably just leave me with an unbootable Apple TV. I've got something pulled up on my iPad here, and it looks like it's just right here, making the USB drive bootable. I had initially thought that this only applied to removable disks like a USB thumb drive like this. However, this applies to both these and an external hard drive. It's a partition type, which is not exactly what I was expecting. So we're going to need to go in and change the disk to be a recovery disk, and we need to keep in mind the actual original one. So thankfully, this MacBook, obviously I can just save it in a text document. So I need to open, well, terminal's in here, but that's fine. And I need to open TextEdit as well. I think I can do disk util list. It's disk 1. Okay, so I can literally just in verbatim copy and paste the tutorial here. It says run sudo gptr show. Okay, so. Oh, there we go. Wow. Okay, so the first one looks to be the EFI partition, and then the rest of this. I don't fully understand this. Find the line with index 2. Index 2. Okay, there it is. Note the start and end values. We will need them later. Run sudo diskutil unmount disk and unmount the disk. Okay, and like I said, I'm going to need these values, so I'm going to just copy and paste this number. I don't need this to have any kind of formatting. We're just gonna make that plain text, and we're gonna call this GPT part is this long number. I'll just say sector 2. And just in case I screw something up, I do want to keep the first sector part as well. So we're going to put that in here, but I don't think I'm going to need the other start and size. Now that we have that, yeah, so unmount. Now I have to remove the partition entry. So we need to do sudo gpt remove -i2, which I think is index 2, dev disk 1. Now I need to add the entries here, but I need to change the start and size values. So sudo gpt add, or do -b and start. So the start value is 409640. And I just forgot, I can just look in here too for the previous values. Let's see, 640-s. This will be the size, so 155.629.644-i. So this will be for the index, and it'll be index 2. And now we need to put in this gigantic number, so. It did it. Theoretically, I can just unplug this. I'm not going to shut this down in case I did something wrong. TV's already plugged in and everything, except the power cable, of course. So let's bring the keyboard. I got to get this plugged in. Oops, obviously. So plug this in to this side of the keyboard, and then plug this end in right here. Oh my gosh, no way. Yo, I did not think that was going to work. Oh my gosh. How? Oh my gosh. I gotta put the brightness down on the display so you can actually see what's going on. How the heck did this work? I'm just blown away. How? Look at that. Look at that. Look at that. This might try to... It's trying to play the intro, but I'm glad it's actually not playing music because that's copywritten. So theoretically there is sound out of these ports, but I don't have it configured at the moment. I'll have to find that adapter at some point. Hopefully by the end of this video, you guys will actually see this. How did this work? How the freak did this work? I don't know. I don't even know. This is beautiful. This is actually, and it looks like we have video acceleration too. In just a few steps, you can ooh, maybe we don't. That's really slow. Unless that's supposed to fade in like that. Okay, here we are. Begin, select your country, yeah, United States. And theoretically, this should be it for the external drive part. I should, we're gonna ignore that for now. I should theoretically be able to clone this to this. I don't know why it said the disk was not readable, but we are in to Leopard. Look at that. It sees everything, it looks like. Spotlight has been disabled, and that's because this thing has so little RAM that it actually uses quite a bit of resources to use Spotlight, so I have it turned off. I don't use it on older Macs that much anyways. And yeah, we've got video acceleration because this is pretty smooth. Golly, about this Mac, I'm curious what this says. Apple TV 1,1, yeah, there it is, right up there. You guys probably can't see that very well. There we go, I've adjusted the camera so you guys can see it a little bit better. Wi-Fi seems to be up and running. This isn't terribly hot. It's a little warm, but it's not hot. Oh, right, there's no spotlight. Just kidding, I guess I use it a decent bit, but that's okay. I can get to disk utility in here. Hopefully it sees the internal drive. It's not showing up on the desktop for obvious reasons, and that is specifically because it's a Linux formatted drive. It does actually show up here. So what I theoretically should be able to do is restore. This source will be this, and the destination, well, I need to format this disk first. macOS extended journal, yeah, that's fine. I could just be consistent with my machines and just name it Leopard HDD. There we go. Leopard HDD, let's erase this. If it'll let me, I hope it does. Yeah, let's do it. Yeah. I hear the disk spinning up in here. It did it. Yeah, look at that. Now we can restore. So let's just do this. Let's do restore. We're gonna use this as the source. Oh, it's not gonna let me do that. This is the destination. I already erased the destination. Just in case, we can do it again. Let's see, we'll destroy all information on the volume. Yeah, let's do it. Theoretically, I could just copy the image file. If this fails, I could just copy the image file to this computer's hard drive by popping it in a different computer. I guess we'll see, and I'll check the partition information later too. So yeah, this is going to take a while, so I'm not going to have you sit through and watch the whole thing, especially that's just going to fill up my phone's camera space. Here we are at the Apple TV, and you can see I've got it customized and just the way I want it, so yeah. How has this thing been so far with Leopard? So first of all, I should tell you the first time I tried to do this, it booted up, you saw that obviously, but it completely crashed. It didn't actually stay working. The Finder eventually just stopped opening. I couldn't open anything, everything just stopped working. So I just decided I'll do a clean install. We'll just see how that goes. Now, so far it's been pretty good after doing a reinstall. What I did was I actually cloned the image to the hard drive, and then what I did was I put the image of the clean Apple TV OS, just like the image file that I downloaded, and put that on the hard drive as well. And then instead of cloning the hard drive itself to the Apple TV, I just used the image that was on the hard drive and imaged it over to the internal hard drive on this thing. So now I've got macOS on this thing, and I didn't even open it up, which is exactly what I wanted to do, was get macOS installed in here to the internal drive without opening the case. The reason why I did this approach is because, well, the rubber on the bottom of these things, when you peel them away, it can get very brittle and can just fall off and tear, and it's a mess, and I just didn't want to deal with that. The rubber on the bottom of mine looks to be in good condition, so I don't want to go messing with it. So I just left it be. How has it been with Leopard? Well, I can't say it's been fantastic, but it's not the slowest thing in the world either. This is pretty smooth, moving this window around here. I can pull up an application, and I'm actually gonna pull up Activity Monitor as an example. So here we are with Activity Monitor. You can see we don't have much RAM free. You can see that number there is like 30 megabytes, and this is basically idle. Yes, the Activity Monitor is open, and you can see it's using 8 megs, so it probably roughly has 40 megs free at idle. How much resources this uses is not good. Now the CPU, on the other hand, is actually completely supported in Leopard. That works totally fine. It actually is above the minimum requirements for a CPU. I think Leopard's requirements were like a G4 at like 800 and something megahertz. This is a Pentium M at 1 gigahertz, so this actually overshoots the requirements. The integrated graphics on this thing also overshoot the requirements for Leopard, so that's why this is actually perfectly fine. You can see it's still very smooth. It's not a bad experience. The only thing that's quite rough is the RAM. Now, I think the RAM is actually a huge limiting factor here, especially because on Leopard, the minimum requirements are 512 megabytes. This device only has 256. And while yes, it works, it does not work very well when it comes to multitasking. Yes, it will do it. macOS is very smart with the swap file, and you can see it's actually thrown a lot in here. And thankfully, since it's not that much data, it can pull stuff in and out of the swap file fairly quickly. If I had an SSD in this thing, which I have been considering doing, but that would require me pulling the rubber off. I'm not really sure I want to do that. Maybe I'll get my hands on another Apple TV to experiment. Or I'll do it when the drive dies, I guess, because then it'd be just a totally useless brick. But right now, while the drive is still working, I'm gonna leave it be. But yeah, with an SSD, it would probably be way more useful. And DOSDude1 actually did a video where he upgraded the RAM on this thing to 512 megabytes. I don't know how you do that. You have to, it's obviously you have to desolder the chips and stuff. It's not fun. I'm not gonna deal with it. Maybe I'll get it sent off to him though, if he has that service still going, to get the RAM upgraded, because that'd be freaking cool. And then the RAM would actually be meeting the system requirements, because you need 512 megs to officially run Leopard. So the only things that I've actually dinked around with on this computer, and I'm calling it a computer now instead of a TV box, because it basically is a computer, is Mac Tracker. Now I actually did this just for posterity's sake, because I actually need to look up an old Apple Cinema display. So I was like, okay, I'll install Nightrunner on here and see if that actually works. And it does, which makes sense because it's just an app that lists stuff. And you can see I'm actually doing a bit of multitasking. I'm gonna leave this open. You see we've got 4 megs free. It's pushing stuff into the page file. You can see that just went up to 13. And here we go. Nightrunner works perfectly fine. Although it's funny when you click this Mac, it has absolutely no idea what this computer is because they don't expect that you'd be running this on an Apple TV. Even though they do have an Apple TV model thing here and you can view the specs, it doesn't expect that the computer you're running this on is going to be an Apple TV. Funnily enough, it is very aware that this is an Apple TV. The sharing name is incorrect. It says Matthew Didos's Apple TV 1,1. Kind of broken, but, and if I go to the About This Mac section here, if it wants to load, there we go. You can see if I hit more info, screw it, let's keep all these open, get more multitasking going. You can see here, and you can see macOS is actually handling this very well. You can see it says it's an Apple TV 1,1. So you'd think that would actually show up in here. Unfortunately, Apple TV 1,1 is not a model identifier in here, so it doesn't really know. However, my main Mac does know, and let me actually open up system preferences to show you what I'm talking about. So if I go into here, and go to sharing, you can see here, file sharing is turned on. I have it named Matt's Apple TV. And if I go over to my main MacBook, the icon for this device is a first-gen Apple TV. It knows. Heck, let me get my main MacBook out here just to show you what I'm talking about. In the sharing panel, you can see here, it actually says it's an Apple TV. And funnily enough, Ventura actually has an icon for the Apple TV in the sidebar, which I find hilarious. I did not expect that to be the case, but it does. So yeah, this thing is actually surprisingly capable. The only app that I've had trouble opening, and yes, the mail app actually still works. I'm not going to open it because it'll show my email, because yes, that actually still loads everything just fine. I can actually still manage my mail from this computer. Not the most secure thing in the world, but I don't care. So let's open up the Finder here. Yeah, you can see this is multitasking at its finest. I've actually never pushed the system this hard. I'd love to do Geekbench scores on this and just see what it gets. If I go ahead and try to open iCal, this app, for whatever reason, I cannot get to open. Every other app worked fine. In fact, before I actually reinstalled macOS, I couldn't get any app to open. So the Finder stopped opening. Every app just stopped opening. This one seems to work just fine now, but the calendar app still does not open. I don't know if that has something to do with MobileMe. Maybe it's crashing because it's trying to connect to the MobileMe servers. But you can see here, it's just gonna disappear. And I bet in a second I'll get an error. Yeah, there it is. Yeah, it works pretty darn well as a little computer. I've not actually tried like running virtual machine software. I don't even think I should dare trying, because the only OS I think I could probably pull off is like Windows 95 set to like 8 megs of RAM or something. Let me know in the comments if you want to see me try that. I will try to push this thing in future videos because this is a freaking awesome computer to use. And while yes, I did try to get Tiger on this thing, or I was going to try, I looked into it and people said the GPU drivers don't seem to function properly. Snow Leopard, people say, does actually work on these things, and it makes sense because it's a 32-bit Intel CPU. But I don't really want to try that because I think that would be pretty hard on the RAM. With Nightrunner, the hardware monitor, and just activity monitor, somehow this has 50 megs free. What? RAM usage is actually pretty decent, more decent than I thought it would be, because it's seemingly putting just stuff into swap. But I'm guessing if you need to run a single application that needs to use the RAM all the time, that's going to be a problem. But it seems like multitasking is actually behaving similarly to how it would behave on an iPhone, where it just suspends the apps in the background and puts them in the swap. Well, iPhones don't have swap, but you get the point. I'm actually surprised by that. Yeah, we've got 47 megs free. I'm genuinely surprised by that. I guarantee you if I close that, so it's going to free up, but it's probably going to move stuff out of the swap file back into RAM. I'd be willing to bet that a lot of the operating system is actually put in the swap file right now, but it's still running and it still works. Before I actually go, I do want to mention some limitations that I've had with this computer. Now, sound works perfectly fine. I can put the volume up and down once it responds. That works fine. Unfortunately, this thing only has a single USB port. Now, this is actually quite the nightmare when it comes to using any kind of peripherals. So what I've done here is I actually have, if I can get my camera off of the tripod here, you can see I've got it sitting on the monitor. There's a metal bracket underneath this Dell monitor here, so the heat is actually transferring through that bracket, which is good. That means it's actually conducting heat out of the machine. I've got this keyboard hooked up here. You can see it works just fine. I've got a mouse plugged into this, and I've got another USB port free. Now, I actually want to try something with this, and that is use this monitor I've got right here. This is a 23-inch Apple Cinema display. This actually, funnily enough, has a USB hub on the back, which would give me some more high-power USB ports. So if I could get this to work, not only would it just fit the aesthetic of this computer, I have extra USB ports because it's got a hub on the back, and then I'd connect a keyboard, which also has a hub. That'd be something to try. I don't have the proper adapters to make this work. That's it for this video. I was not expecting this video to be a success story. I'm very excited about that. Let me know in the comments what you want to see me do with this computer. And yes, it's basically an old Mac now. I would love to experiment with this thing. Thank you guys so much for watching. Man, I'm excited to see this thing work. Leave a like and get subscribed if you like the content that you see on this channel. Thank you guys so much for watching. And I will see you guys all later. Bye.